me a story. Something we've all said or heard in our lives. Stories bring us together around the campfire. Storytelling has earned its place as the most important tradition humans possess. The most important reason for this being that every story contains a lesson. Lessons to love, to forgive, to be just, and to strive for better than we have. They empower us, they lead us, they comfort us. Born in Alberta, raised in the backcountry, fishing, hunting, nature, the wild, all run thick in my blood. Growing up a Canadian boy, I had a similar dream to most other boys my age here, to make the NHL. When that dream was yanked from beneath my feet, how could I carry on? My story is full of hope, inspiration, joy, heartbreak, heartache, and resiliency. My name is Dana Lattery. I'm a fly fishing guide in southern Alberta, an ex-professional hockey player, and a storyteller at heart. Having spent the past decade guiding thousands of fly fishermen from all over the world, I've heard so many stories that paralleled mine. Stories of pain, brokenness, tragedy, from all different walks of life. The more time I spend with them, the more I realized that we all shared one common thread. Fly fishing saved our lives. Grab your favorite drink and join me on this journey as our story begins. Welcome back to another episode of Fly Fishing Saves Lives. I'm your host, Dana Lattery, and today I'm joined by a friend just north of me, Chas. Welcome to the show, Chas.
Awesome. Thanks, Dana. Hello, everybody in the world of podcasting.
And no, you don't need to wear pants when you podcast from afar like this.
Or shirts.
Or shirts.
We can neither confirm or deny.
But it was a question that we had to answer each other if we were. And no, we're not in the same room. That's just so everybody knows it. It's not weird That's like hilarious. That. So, Chas, just a pretty cool conversation we're going to have today. And why don't you just kind of let everybody know who is Chas and what does Chas do and how does fly fishing or fishing come into your life?
Oh, okay. Who is Chas? Chas, hello, everybody. I am, I don't even know how to start or I'm a fly fishing fanatic, blacksmith, journeyman, carpenter, construction manager. That's a mouthful. Yeah. Completely obsessed with all things, environmental conservation, recycling. I grew up all over Western Canada, pretty much. Dad was a welder growing up. So I believe high school or junior high was the first time I was in the school for more than a year. So we moved quite a bit. When people say, where are you from? I giggle because I've lived in 26 different cities.
Wow.
So, you learn to find stuff to do or, growing up with making friends and then 3 months later or 6 months later you're moving, so yeah, I'm from Western Canada.
Yeah.
And when people ask me where I'm from, Calgary was the first place I was at a school longer than a year or two. So yeah, I like to say Calgary. That's who I am. Been in the trades since a young age. Journeyman carpenter by trade, and obviously blacksmithing. That came into my life years later. But yeah, it's kind of in a nutshell. I can't mention myself like who is Chas. I'm a dad to an amazing son and a husband to an even awesomer person, my wife Carolyn. So it's kind of my whole world.
So name a couple more cities you've lived in.
All right, Kamloops, Victoria, Vancouver, Calgary, Sherwood Park, Edmonton, Fort Saskatchewan. It keeps going, but memory is short right now.
And you're in Edmonton?
Yeah, currently in Edmonton. In 1999, I met my sister's roommate, and my sister was living in Edmonton, and met my sister's roommate, and that was it. Stars aligned, and I was like, "Oh, nice. Who's this chick?"
And that's your wife, we hope.
That's my wife, Carolyn. Yeah.
Perfect. So you guys are living in Edmonton. You've been married for how long?
Yeah. So we met in '99. We've been married since 2005. So 7 years this year. We have an awesome kid. 2005, whatever that is.
Yeah, it was, 7 years.
15 years. Man, math is hard. Apparently,
we did this podcast in 2012, and we're just gonna put it out there. There we go.
Traveled back in time.
So, Edmonton. Where did fly fishing, Edmonton's kind of more north and probably warm water species or lake fishing,
yes.
Bigger water with the North Saskatchewan. And now where did fly fishing come into your life?
Fly fishing has been in my life since Calgary. I was downstairs in our basement when I was a kid, and I came across this old teak. I still remember it. I still remember the smell. It was this old teak box that was a rod box. It smelled like old cedar on the inside, and it had tarnished old brass hardware. I open it up, and there's a fly rod, a bamboo fly rod, all handmade, hand woven eyelets, and everything was done by hand.
Yeah.
And I asked my dad, I'm like, "What is this?" He's like, that's a fly rod. And I'm like, "Fly rod? What's a fly rod?" He's like, "Well, fly fishing." He pulls out this reel, and on the reel, everything is super old and dusty. On the reel, the line was actually like woven horsehair.
Wow.
Line. So it was like super old. I don't even know. I can't remember the conversation where he got it, or I think he bartered it with something. I don't know. My dad.
Yeah.
However he came upon it. I found it. I was like, "Well, can you teach me?" And he's like, "Sure." I don't really know if he really knew anything about fly fishing, but cool story. I was on Ghost Reservoir when I was a kid, figuring out this bamboo fly rod casting, and this guy pulls up behind me. Like I was casting, when you come from Cochrane, that bridge right there, right at the mouth.
Yeah.
I was casting kind of under the bridge and just tossing a line and everything out there. And I think there was like a royal wolf on there or something. And this guy, this old man gets out of this like 40-foot long, like Ford Crown Vic car that squeaked as it ran down the road. He gets out of this thing as it's squeaking, and he stumbles down toward me, and he's like, "You're fly fishing?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fly fishing." And he's like, "You cast so beautifully. Do you mind if I take some pictures of you?" And I was like, "I don't even know how to cast. I don't even know what I'm doing." And he's like, "It looks like you're doing everything right. You're not hitting stuff behind you, and you're not getting cut up in the grass over there." So he actually took pictures of me casting.
Really?
Which I thought was, I think about it now, and maybe it was weird, but like back then, that was quite a few years ago. But like he wasn't weird to me. But yeah, I'll never forget that comment. He was super intrigued that I was casting these, 40-foot bombs under this bridge with a bamboo and horsehair line rod, like it's pretty cool. It just made me feel, like super awesome.
Yeah, like you'd kind of made it in whatever world. And
yeah,
I mean, casting it's an art form, and it's definitely beautiful to watch somebody who can cast. And now if you're getting into some bamboo rod, and it probably was a super slow action rod, and I mean, those are pretty fun to cast too.
Oh yeah, it was like slow and go.
Yeah.
Back before the internet days, I read a couple of books on how to cast, and there was this book on with Lefty Kreh, his neoprene waders, and
yeah,
it was pretty cool, but I didn't really do anything with it. And I don't want the listeners to feel like I'm awesome at fly. I actually suck at fly fishing.
We all suck. We all suck.
So it's a cool story about the bamboo rod and the guy taking pictures of me, but it was so cool. And I remember the feeling like I fly fished with that bamboo rod in the Bow River so many nights. Like when I would come home from school, I would pedal my bike, like we lived in Riverbend, and I'd pedal my bike all the way to, what's that park? Not Fish Creek Park. I forget the name of the park, but I'd ride my bike down there and I'd fish the river. I never caught anything but a bunch of grass. Ever.
Well, that is the Bow River. I mean.
And so I don't want the listeners to think like, oh, listen to this guy. No, I suck at fly fishing, guys. Like it's
you just got the attention of an older man in the Crown Victoria.
Yeah.
Did he have any candy? Was he?
No. It was pretty cool. And there was no wind that day. It was amazing. There was like nothing behind me except little patches of grass, but it was cool because I was like, it was the first time I was really bombing out big long casts.
Yeah.
And you're right, the rod, like it was so slow, like it was slow motion.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And so that's
how I was introduced to fly fishing.
And so from there, you get to spend time on the Bow River, which we all know can not be the place for new people to go gain confidence. And
I didn't catch anything.
Yeah. So what keeps you in it? Like, why do you keep fly fishing? What's your next? Where's the next place you move, and where's the next place that you take your bamboo fly rod?
Okay, excellent question. So, fly fishing kind of stopped or paused for me. As life gets on, you get into the trades, you start working, work consumes everything. You meet a pretty brown-eyed girl, that consumes your life. And then you start having a family.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I picked up the fly rod again. Like I gear fished a little bit here and there on camping trips or whatever, like nothing too obsessive. But Carol and I, we had our child, it's a boy, and 6 years later, or some 6 years, oh my God. Math is hard, apparently, for Chas.
It's not your thing.
Tell us about Chas. Math is hard, and I'm a construction manager. But so we had a kid, and 6 months later, we're kind of, Carol and I, it's our first kid, and we're looking at each other like, he's not smiling, he's crying a lot, he's crying and then sleeping, he's sleeping, crying. Like, I get it. Everybody out there rolling their eyes, like, that's what kids do, that's what babies do, they cry and they sleep. But this was not normal crying. So, like we kept going to his first pediatrician. What's going on? Like he's not even smiling. He's not even really looking at us. His eyes are kind of, they can't focus on any one thing. You can tell like there's nothing really going on here. What's up? And the doctor, his pediatrician, is just giving us the old, yeah, you guys are first time parents. Don't worry about it. He'll be fine. Oh, look, he's gained 2 pounds since last month or last week or whatever it was. And my wife is just like, no, you know what? I don't accept that. I'm going to get a different pediatrician. So
this is at 6 months.
6 months old. Yeah. 6 months old, crying, sleeping, crying, sleeping, and more crying. And so we went to a different pediatrician, which is Nolan's pediatrician now, but he puts him on the table and he starts poking at him and does what doctors do, push around on the belly and, do this stuff. And then Nolan kind of jumped and then he screamed and then he went to sleep while on the table. And the doctor was like, I'll be right back. And Carol and I are sitting in the doctor's office. We're like, oh, okay, that's weird. Like, here we go. Another doctor's going to tell us, you guys are just, you're being new parents. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. Your kid's fine. And he comes back in and he's like, I don't want to alarm you guys, but there's something seriously not right with Nolan, and we have to admit him today, and we're gonna figure this out together.
Really?
And like, instant waterworks, like so typical dad. Like we're both sitting there holding hands. Nolan's in his car seat, crying, and the doctor's telling us news. I go instantly white, and my wife starts crying and. We're like, what is happening? And then that sent us down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out what was going on with Nolan. So in the end, we found out like it took.
So there's a lot of
unpack.
emotion. Yeah, and I mean, I'm hearing the story for the first time right now, and it's like it's hit me because. You're 6 months in and, for you guys, it's, what's going on? This might not be normal. You've been told it's normal. And then within like 10 seconds, the doctor comes back in and says, hey, this isn't normal. And like, I mean, as a dad and it's a boy, your words about 5 minutes ago, that's pretty, oh man, this is going to be my adventure buddy. This is going to be my fly fishing buddy. This is going to be, we're going to be attached at the hips. We got all these big plans. And then you hear there's, this isn't normal.
Yeah. So you're in shock. Like it's instant shock, right? And what do dads usually do? Dads either fix things or they get angry.
Because you're angry because we can't fix them, and that makes us we feel inferior, and it's challenges our manhood. We can't fix it, so you're not the man we thought you were. Yeah,
totally.
So what happens next? Like where do they take them? What do they do for tests? Like how?
Yeah, so we got a room. He when he left the room. And he was gone for not very long, like maybe 10, 15 minutes. He came back in the room, gave us the news. And then within, I'm going to say a half hour after dropping a bomb, we were admitted and we had a hospital room. And, and then the next, I would say few days, I honestly, I call those years in the beginning with Nolan, Carolyn and I, we call them survival mode. So it's actually pretty hard to remember what actually,
Totally.
transpired for timelines, just because you're surviving, like your
Totally.
basic survival mode.
Hmm.
That's how we kind of explain it. But
Yeah, no,
so
it totally makes sense.
so you're up in this hospital room, and blood tests and skin tests and hair samples and poke and prod and tubes and wires sticking out of your kid, and like nobody prepares you for that.
No, how do you?
Nobody prepares you for sitting there helplessly while your kid is a pincushion to try and figure out what the heck is going on. And so that's why we call it survival mode. But eventually we were talking to a neurologist, and Nolan was doing one of his screaming things, and the neurologist is looking at his eyes going, and he's like, you know what, let's do an EEG here and figure out what's going on in the old noggin. And Nolan has this cap, this tight looking old leather rugby looking hat that they put on him, and they bunch of wires sticking out of everywhere. And he's laying in the bed, and he's doing his screaming thing. And Carol and I, we're exhausted. We haven't even gone home. I don't even remember the last time we showered.
Yeah.
We're just sitting there, just in zombie survival mode. And the neurologist comes back in the room, and he's like, yeah, I regret to inform you, Nolan has infantile spasms. And we're like, what's that? And he's like, it's a super rare form of epilepsy. And we're like, okay, epilepsy, okay, seizures, okay.
Manageable, yeah.
Yeah, what can we do? And he's like, well, it's pretty rare. The life expectancy is really unknown. The treatment is really unknown. We'll try and stop the seizures. So we'll rewind back to when he was first born, and Nolan would flinch a lot, like like a young baby. Like if you make a loud noise, they like jump.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they almost startle.
Yeah.
Well, Nolan was doing that every 5 seconds, and then either crying or sleeping, which we found out that day that was a seizure. So Nolan was having 300 to 600 seizures a day. And with this type of epilepsy, it was actually, it was causing brain damage. There's the science, I'm doing bunny ear quotes, but the science still out, like if it causes pain, like your pain interceptors in your brain too. So like there's a lot of stuff happening in that little dude. And my world was rocked right there when he's like, like when you have to ask the doctor, I still remember choking on the words. When you have to ask the doctor, what is the life expectancy of my child?
Yeah.
It tears you. It tears your soul. I can't even begin to explain like how I muttered those. Like Carolyn was so stricken with grief that she couldn't even speak for a couple of days. And I'm asking the doctor, like, how long, like what's the life expectancy of my son? And we just sat, like I remember the doctor and the resident left the room, and we just sat there holding Nolan's hand, and there he is having a seizure. And now we know it's seizures. We're like, oh, there's another seizure, and we're doing nothing about it. Like it was just frustrating. It was painful. It was all the emotions. And eventually they got some kind of med concoction. So we were doing steroids, we were doing vigabatrin, we were doing Keppra. There was like, I think at one point he was on 13 meds.
Jeez.
To try and get his seizures under control. But eventually we slowed them down. To this day, Nolan's still, like, his epilepsy is not under control, but it's considered under control enough that, he's not having, 600 seizures a day. He's only having maybe one a week or one every 3 months. It depends on, it depends on a lot of stuff that we've learned along the way. And so you go through this. You go through this in the beginning with Nolan, and then, with the West syndrome, the infantile spasms that he has, it just came with a whole extra binder of stuff. Okay, like, hey, listen, he doesn't swallow properly, and he's going to have a lot of pneumonias, and he can't eat. He's going to have to eat through a tube, and oh, by the way, he can't breathe properly. You're probably going to have to maybe get a trach. And like, there was all this, like, it's just complete shock as you're going through this. And that's why Carolyn and I call it, zombie survival mode. Cause you're trying to figure out what life is going to be like. Cause we all have a perception of what life is supposed to be like, and what, like, my expectation of having a boy is going to be this, and we're going to play soccer, and we're going to, like, we're going to fish, we're going to adventure, and then it's like, no, actually, you're going to spend the first, 4 years of your son's life in and out of the stollery, fighting for his life. And it's just, it's gut wrenching, but, you get to experience the extremes in life when you go through something like that. So you get to experience, the extreme low. Like, I don't know if you call it, like, I don't know if you can call it depression, but I'm going to call it depression of normalcy, especially as a man who never talks about their feelings. You go through this, like, this angry mode. And I reverted. I didn't pack my shit, or sorry, stop. I didn't pack my stuff and leave, like, that's actually a pretty common thing for people who have special needs kids. The dad doesn't stick around. But
really,
what I did do though is I dove into work. So I started working like ridiculous hours, like 5 a.m. till 11 at night, and like just 7 days a week. And that was my way of dealing with it, like just being away from home and working, thinking that I'm doing something good other than sit around and wallowing, or however you want to put it. But
well, it's a common coping strategy whenever there's trauma. The body tries to shut it, like, and you've talked about it in the zombie survival years, and that the body tries to shut that out and say, hey, just keep working. It doesn't exist. And when you got to go home and see it, it becomes reality. And so, it's not that you were a bad person or you dealt with it terribly. It's what do you like? I encourage a listener out there to tell me what they would do different, because we don't know. Like, and I know it's one thing Janine constantly says every day in her gratitude journal, is that she's just thankful for her children's health. And knowing that that's something that at 6 months you guys were challenged on every single level with Nolan's, stuff that he was going through, stuff that you guys were going through. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I can't. I live it, and I can't even imagine.
The power of the human mind to shut things out. So what do they tell you at 6 months for life expectancy? Like what is the normalcy for Nolan's condition?
So it's super spectrum, right? That's the thing about Nolan's infantile spasms is some kids, there's just not enough research out there, but some kids have infantile spasms and they can still function.
Mm-hmm.
They might have special needs in another way, but they can still function. There's other kids where it's super hard on the body, and it requires, a lot of work, 24 hours a day care.
Mm-hmm.
And usually those kids don't live as long. That's what we were told.
Yeah.
And what I tried to get out of them is like, give me a day. I need to know if there's a year, if there's like, I need to know that. And they're like, we can't tell you because it's so rare. We don't know.
Yeah. The uncertainty has just got to be overwhelming.
So the one doctor we did, whether he meant to or not, the one doctor was like, well, 3 years old is probably the max, maybe 5, that Nolan will survive, just because of lung issues and all the stuff that comes with it, like all the complicated things. And so when we heard that, we went into like super drive, and we're, what about this that fixes seizures, and what about that fixes seizures, and what if we try this, and why don't you guys suck all the marrow out of my body and try and like what can I'll give him, like what if we transplant like my liver, would that do, like you're starting to go down this rabbit hole of trying, like I would give everything of me in order for him to not feel pain anymore, everything. But
Chaz, think about it. You guys are giving him everything. And I'm not trying to fast forward the story, but you are, man. Like I see what you guys do for him. I see the lifestyle that you've brought him into, which we'll get into, but it's like you need to give yourself credit. And Caroline, it's like you guys are doing everything. You guys are, I know there's let me give him my liver, my kidneys. What can I give him in that level? But it's like, it's pretty special who you guys are and what you do for Nolan.
Yeah. You get to a point where it becomes normal, and you realize what can you give your son or your child is time.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's what you come, like you almost have to live it. And then you come to this moment where you're trying all these experimental drugs on him, and nobody really knows if they're working. And, one day Carolyn and I looked at each other. We're like, okay, enough. Let's start from square one. Let's start talking about quality of life, not fixing a life. Mm. What's the best life for Nolan? So throughout this journey, it was really hard for me to digest. So, I've always kind of wrote or just jotted stuff down and, felt like I needed to share. But what I did realize is there's not a lot of content for dads out there. Now, again, kids with special needs, especially kids who require extra care, like 24 hours care, mom and dads usually don't stay together. Mm-hmm. It's hard. It's hard on the relationship. It's hard on the conceptual working as a team or a partnership. Because there's times where you feel selfish. You feel, like I need some downtime.
Yeah.
And if you're not truly honest with your teammates, so that for me, that's Carolyn. If you're not honest with them, like she is with me and I am with her, you're not gonna make it through. Like, you got to be completely honest and open, and sometimes you just got to sit there and listen. There's no fixing it. And so we came to the realization, quality of life for Nolan. And what does that mean? Well, I like to do this stuff, so Nolan is going to get to do this stuff. And I would say that's when we really started to fish quite a bit, or be outside, camp, like just outside. Like, he's always with me everywhere we go. Anybody who's listening, CBD oil works. Huge life improvement for anybody. And like, we started CBD in 2017, and he went from, I would say 10 to 20 seizures a week to, one a week or one every 3 months, like instantly.
Wow.
So we found, a plant that doesn't have any harmful side effect. Man, you should see some of the side effects on the drugs he was on.
Wow.
Right now, he's currently on 1, 2, 3. He's only on 3, including CBD, to control his seizures, where we were at like 13.
That's incredible.
So CBD works for
you
Nolan.
heard it here first. Well, probably didn't hear it here first, but I mean, that's that's pretty crazy to think something can drastically, not to get into the whole pharmaceutical money, dollars and stuff, but we kind of all know where that goes. But so let's I mean, all of a sudden you realize that this is let's fixate on the quality of time together. Yeah. And so
enter fishing.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden
enter fishing. Yeah.
The bamboo rod enters your world again.
Yeah, it totally did. Even though I didn't have a bamboo rod, I did have a really nice dragonfly graphite rod. Yeah. I was almost late for my own wedding day. I was fly fishing just off of Pyramid Lake, and we got married on the island at Pyramid Lake. And my buddy was sitting there, and he's like, "Dude, what time do you get married?" I was like, 12. And he's like, "It's 11:10." And I'm like,
gotta go.
We're all the way down the mountain. Like, we got to cook and book, bud. So yeah. Anyway, that's fly fishing's always been there. But I've always tried to squeak it in where it could. And then
I think it just we shows up in a and just in talking with other people and talking with many people on the boat all the time. It's just like the thing is like fly fishing's always there, but it's like this sensei, I guess, if for lack of a better term, that just sits there and waits for you to come and ask, show me your ways. Well, what's next? Out. Or it doesn't go away, but it's sitting there waiting. And as you go through this stuff with Nolan, I think Nolan's 14. Am I correct?
Yeah, you betcha.
So, I mean, there we are saying 2 or 3 years at the most. I know Nolan takes a lot of care from you guys, and that's a full-time job. And so it's like, okay, quality time, we're going fly fishing. And I guess just kind of explain Nolan, like what he's capable of right now, and just kind of how you've explored. We could talk about your jet boat you got built and just stuff like that, and things you got to do with Nolan fly fishing. Yeah,
sure. So last year, I'm going to flash forward to last year. So with Nolan having this type of epilepsy and being like, he's been in a wheelchair his whole life, and being in a wheelchair with no muscle tone, he got really bad scoliosis, like super bad. Like, the surgeon who repaired his back said it was the worst he's ever seen.
And that's curvature of the spine?
Curvature of the spine. Not only did he have 120-degree curvature from top of neck to middle of back. He also had from middle of back to lower back 180-degree rotation.
Oh, wow.
So he was basically curved, collapsed lung sitting on his kidneys and liver. So that's painful.
Yeah.
And last year, my wife and I, like, we knew he had to have major surgery probably since about 8 or 9, but we held off and we held off and we held off, you know, like, he's not strong enough. Do we want to go through that? What's the risk? The risk is 50-50. 50% your kid, like for Nolan, 50% your kid lives, 50% your kid doesn't live. Toss that coin. How do you make that decision? And last year, you know, actually in 2019, October 2019, he was just in so much pain. He couldn't, like, the seizure, it wasn't the seizures anymore. It was just pain, his pain in his spine, his limbs. We're like, okay, he needs surgery. We're going to do it. And February 21st, 2020, he got a double instrumentation full spine fusion. So they take 2 steel rods on either side of the spine, bolt his back, straighten him up, and the surgery took 12 and a half hours.
Wow.
12 and a half hours, 3 blood transfusions. So major surgery. I can't even explain what that's like. So there was right after surgery, Carolyn wasn't feeling well, and this is right when COVID really started to hit.
Yeah.
And so she wasn't feeling well. I was like, well, like, you better go home, because the last thing Nolan needs is, like, you know, COVID or even just a cold. Like,
yeah.
So she went home. I stayed. I was worried about her. Nolan he was pretty stable. And I was sitting there talking to his nurse in the PICU, PEDS ICU unit. And all of a sudden, Nolan just stopped breathing. Just stopped breathing. And like, it was a complete shock. The nurse chucked a bagger at me, and he's like, start bagging him. And he was over at the IVs, and he was like injecting like all this stuff. I don't even know if it was like adrenaline and like I don't know what was going on, but he had like 12 IVs in him. And you know, after like an hour, Nolan was finally breathing on his own again. The nurse is looking at me, and I guess I was just completely white. And he's like, dude, are you okay? Like, do you want me to get you supper? Do you want, like, what do you, the nurses in the PEDS ICU are hands down the strongest individuals I've ever met. And this guy, Bradley, shout out to Bradley if he ever listens. You know, just a phenomenal human being. He's like, go sit down. I got Nolan. He's fine. Just go sit down. And I was sitting there, and I had this epiphany. You know what? People need to hear Nolan's story. Yeah. I'm doing a documentary. And so Carolyn comes up, like, I don't know where it came from, dude. I was just sitting there, and that's the voice that spoke to me. You know what I mean? Yeah. And Carolyn comes in like the next day or a couple days later. She was starting to feel better. It was just a cold, and you know, that and a mountain of stress that she was under. But she comes in, and I'm sitting there like a zombie, haven't slept in 4 days, 5 days. And I'm like, guess what? I'm just super hyper and super, you know, like, when you haven't slept in days, you get to this point where you're just like on speed or something. I don't know what it is. Yeah. But I'm like, guess what? We're doing a documentary. We're going to film this. We're going to do that. We're going to do it about how Nolan goes fly fishing. And so she's like, what is wrong with you? That's the first thing out of her mouth. She's like, what is wrong with you? We're not, no, no, we're not doing this. Like, are you insane?
Yeah.
And yeah, I was determined. So we ended up doing a documentary last summer. It's 12 minutes.
Yep.
We're gonna release it February 21st, which is a year after his major surgery.
Yep.
But what came with that? Well, we love fishing, right? Like,
Yep.
it's absolutely saved our lives in a family thing we get to do together, and it gets Nolan on the water. And the biggest issue is he's in a wheelchair, right? So getting on the water is pretty difficult. Like, you're either slugging through mud, especially on the North Saskatchewan, like it's not the nicest banks you can wheel up to.
Yeah.
And we're fishing kind of on the river, and we're seeing all these jet boats rip by. And I'm like, man, that'd be so awesome. And I started talking to a jet boat manufacturer in Edmonton, Explorer Industries. I'm like, hey, my son's in a wheelchair. How do we make it accessible? And we went back and forth through design, and I worked with him like over a year, and we got a jet boat made for Nolan around his wheelchair.
That's
and
cool.
Has a ramp on and off, and yeah, it's phenomenal. So now Nolan has like water legs. He can go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, what a world open to you guys as a family to just
So
kind of
epic, man.
get away from the stress, the compounding stress of of everything, and just to get to take Nolan to our happy place, the river,
Yeah.
fly fishing. I get to see the pictures and the videos that you post, and just this euphoric look he has on his face when he's out on the river, and you could just see it in his eyes, and it's magic. It's literally,
it is.
It's, you talked about the quality of time, and there it is. It's accessibility, putting Nolan's needs ahead of your guys's, but knowing the need to fly fish is for everybody, and it does save your life, and it changes your life, and I mean, what a summer you guys had.
Yeah, it was a beautiful summer. So we had a fixed spine. It didn't get rid of 100% of the pain, but it dialed it back 98%.
Fantastic.
And so now we have this beautiful child who can sit for more than 10, 15 minutes. Now he can sit almost all day.
Wow.
And we're in a boat ripping up and down the water. We found out when he was young, he really loved being on water and boats. Like, we rented a pontoon boat, and he like instantly just relaxed. And I don't know what it is about water. Nolan is made to be on the water.
I think we all. I think it's like it's a spiritual, magical thing that feeds our soul. It being on the water.
Yeah. It just like, honestly, fly fishing. So how we fly fish with Nolan, like, he can't hold anything.
Mm-hmm.
So we put a rod holder on his chair, and what I do is I cast the rod out, and then I put the rod in the rod holder, and then we just kind of drift with his rod, and he smokes some pretty big fish on his rod, and we haven't landed one with him yet. We have, like, in a lake, but not on the North Saskatchewan, but we're still waiting. But he loves it, man. Like, fly fishing, and this is why I'm, anybody knows me, I can either be totally overbearing and like obsessive, but I just get super passionate about everybody needs to fish.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has the right to fish. That's a place I'm coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And like, fly fishing is just such a form of connecting with everything around you. Yeah, whether you catch your fish or not, it doesn't matter. No. It's the experience of you in nature, in rhythm. That's why fly fishing is such a beautiful thing. You're in nature, in your own rhythm with her.
Yeah. And like you said, it is for everybody. It's we've touched on it many times in the podcast and touched on it many times in guided days with people on the river, and it's just like it's this thing. It does not discriminate. The fish, they do not care. They don't care. They don't care where you are, who you are, what your bank statement says, what's the color of your skin, what the religious background you are. They take it at face value, and that's the one of the coolest things that I find about fly fishing is it's you go, you find your rhythm with the river, and you do your thing, and once you get in sync with it, magic happens. And
Magic. You can't even put words to the way it heals you.
no.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I do.
Like it's
I do.
super difficult. Like I hats off to, yourself, Dana, and Tim, and the rest of the crew. Like, you guys are just an amazing group of people that get it. And it's so nice to meet people who understand, where my super, like, maybe I am super over passionate about stuff, but
No,
like I've also experienced.
Don't ever apologize for that. That is an elixir that more people need to take on.
Yeah, I just, whether it's blacksmithing in the shop with Nolan, or we're on a river somewhere, just being with him, and like most of our focus as a family is around fly fishing.
Yeah.
And we tie flies, we talk about flies. We've read the Orvis book to guide to fly fishing a bazillion times. Like, it's part of our lives. It's who we are. It's what we do. And it's an amazing life to give Nolan. Give him everything.
The coolest thing, and like I said at the start, is getting to hear the full details of the stories. I know what I see. We all know what we can see, and oftentimes on social media, the life that people portray is very curated. They leave out a lot of the realness. One thing I do say for you, we've kind of got to get to know each other in the past 3 or 4 months, like really. Been following the story and the journey for a while, and it's super inspiring. The cool thing is just getting to talk to you a few times, and here on the podcast is you guys have every right to be absolutely bitter as hell, because if you laid the cards on the table and said, here's the card you're gonna get, I don't think too many people would have the incredible spirits that you guys have, the positivity. Every time I talk to you, I leave there feeling inspired, and I'm just like, that's cool, because sometimes when there's something going wrong in my world, and poor me, somehow Instagram shows me your feed, and it's like, there's Nolan, and you guys are sitting out on a fire on your driveway, or you guys are forging some steel in the garage, and it's just like, it puts things into perspective, and it's powerful. And I need you to know that stuff's contagious. I appreciate what you said about our group. I think the magic is that when people truly can be themselves, you will attract other people, like-minded people, and you grow a community. And it's pretty awesome to have you and Nolan and Carolyn a part of this community. It's awesome. I appreciate you. I appreciate your journey, your honesty. It fires me up, man. Fire in my belly, and it gets me excited to just be a better person because of you guys.
Oh man, I appreciate that. I'm going to do a super shameless plug right now. But my journey as a dad dealing with this stuff, because I never had an outlet. I started a page years ago called Dads Who Matter on Facebook.
Yep.
And, I encourage anybody who, it doesn't matter, whether your child is, I'm doing bunny ears, quote, normal or not normal.
Yeah.
Every dad deals with stuff different. I don't have a girl. I have an awesome little dude. I can't imagine what it's like having a girl. And but if you want to if you want to just go check out Dads Who Matter and see like I'm pretty honest on there.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel like you need just to listen to another dad talk about what it's like, and I'm pretty open and honest on that page. So if anybody listening wants to go check out Dads Who Matter,
100%.
That's where we're going to release our documentary too. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So Dads
Who Matter.
And that's on Facebook. And February 21st
save the date.
Is the release date. What date is that? Is that a
Sunday? One time. Well, it's going to be on there, so I guess it's not one time only, but
we should. Yes. Sunday, February 21st. So yeah, anybody who wants to check that out, 100%. Chas, I again super pumped. I don't think it was by happenstance that our paths crossed, and I think you need to know that I appreciate you and I appreciate your journey. I appreciate you being open and honest about it. I appreciate your positivity, your support. Even though I don't get to see you on Thursday nights and you get to see us, but it's, it's like having your best buds there hanging out for our fly tying night. And super look forward to February 21st, and we get to watch the full 12 minutes of the story, and probably a lot of things we talked about here will be there in a motion picture sense. I know you're super excited and passionate for people to see it. So anybody who is curious more, Instagram, Facebook, Dads Who Matter, all the ways that people can reach out to you. And maybe there's people out there who are going through a very similar situation, but maybe it's the 6-month stage for them right now, and they're just getting this devastating news. And I know you're open and willing to talk with people. So maybe someone's out there going through that and they just think that their world's falling apart, and rightfully so. And I think your story is empowering for other people in that situation, people with special needs, to know that, yeah, you can get them out there. You can take them fishing. And, seeing the joy on Nolan's face when he is going fishing is probably just as powerful as the CBD oil that's making a big difference in his life.
Oh, yeah. And I've said this a million times. My mission in life is for other people to hear this story, not for my own ego or whatever. I want people to hear Nolan's story so they feel inspired that they can do something with their special needs kid. And I'll throw it out there. If you have a child in a wheelchair, and I know what it's like to struggle with accessibility, I will take you fishing.
Yes.
I'll draw. I don't care where you are. It's not going to cost you guys anything. We'll figure out a time and a place, whether it's on a lake or on a river. I will come and meet you, and we will take your kid fishing, because every kid deserves to go fishing. Every kid.
That's unbelievable.
Figure it out together.
Yes. Well, again, that's fantastic. And I know that there's always one. That's kind of my goal in the podcast, is that each episode can just touch one person's life. And again, thanks for sharing. Appreciate it 1,000%. It's not easy kind of going on this. It would be better if we could do this in person, but I guess this is where the COVID world leads us, is to these telephone calls. But and yet we have yet to actually meet face to face, so I await that day too. Oh man, hugs. There's gonna be big hugs. Absolutely. So Well, I'm Dana Lattery, and this is Fly Fishing Saves Lives. And if you have a story that you would like to tell, if Chaz's story has touched your life, and you've got something to share with me, I would love to tell your story and create some space for you guys here on this podcast. And until next time, I love you guys.